Good morning, Mike the MC, bringing another self-care video. Today I'm going to share with you number 115 of the Catechism with respect to developing the senses of Scripture, both the literal and the supernatural senses, right? And trying to see how, building upon these senses, we can really push ourselves to grow, not just spiritually, but then becoming a whole person in the process. And part of that process I want to share with you further is two books that I have here today. One for developing your own personal sense of starting to know God in real life, and then this extra book of developing your own self-esteem as well, the 6 pillars. And these are great works to consider as far as personal development, trying to overcome negative thinking, toxic people, and to really push yourself to become a whole human being. But one of the books mentions, what is the limit? How do you know you've obtained what you've been obtaining the whole time? Have you always had it and you're just making it better? Those are good questions to consider. And so, without further ado, let's get this topic started. Alright, so here's number 115 of the Catechism with respect to building the senses of Scripture. And so the senses of Scripture from 115 are the following. According to an ancient tradition, one can distinguish between two senses of Scripture, the literal and the spiritual, the latter being subdivided into 4 allegorical, moral, and analytical senses. The profound concordance of the 4 senses guarantees all its richness to the living reading of the Scripture in the Church. And then in the following sections of the Catechism, it'll draw on those spiritual senses. But for now, just considering that there's a spiritual and a literal sense of understanding the Scripture. So literally, right, the Good Samaritan, one of my favorites, is just like, all right, someone's on the road. I literally see someone on the ground. Am I going to pick them up? Am I going to help that person? Am I going to give them $1 so that they could get a coffee or something? Am I going to give that person some bread or some donation, right? Am I going to literally help the person, looking at the Scripture literally, like, all right, let's go and apply what I'm being learned from the Scripture today. Spiritually, now maybe it connects to that a little bit as well. You're taking on a meaning from the Scripture. Like, what is it telling me, myself, and you to do from the Scripture passage that you read? What is it spiritually that you recognize from God that He's trying to tell you in this sense? Or what is the meaning behind something you're going through in life, whether it's a divorce, loss of a child, something negative, and you want to find that truth from the Lord to say, hey, is this what you're telling me to listen to right now in this moment? Is this the Scripture passage? Is this what you want me to listen to right now? I don't like it, but maybe that's something that I gotta hear. So one of the things to consider now is when you're developing these senses, you're building a relationship with God in the process. You're literally starting to see Him in different ways. And so I highlight here this first book of Thomas Aquinas, the treatise on divine nature. And so it's from the Summa Theologica. And with Thomas Aquinas, right, beautiful, wonderful saint, talking about the richness of the faith, trying to understand God through proofs. Proofs meaning like, okay, because of this, it's this, or because of this, it's not this. And throughout all of his work, he'll use Scripture and the sciences to validate what is true or not true with respect to our nature and looking at God's divine intervention basically in our lives through all these different parts. But basically from this book, I just want to share with you the 5 ways. The 5 ways of knowing God in that, all right, for a second, bear with me. They are change, efficient causal series, corruption, degrees of being, and order. The first one of change. Think of like the Big Bang, like an explosion. You set off the fuse, boom, there's the change. All right, the change will bring about some creation. Something wonderful is being created in the process of change, and that could also be bad because it's not stopping. So that's why with life and death, good and bad, there's all this change in the world. The efficient causal series, meaning, all right, I'm alive today. I got parents, right? I got my nieces and nephews, right? They're here actually at the house, right? The idea here is you see generations, my grandparents, great-grandparents, and you see all these different lineages along the way, and it goes back to who, as a start, God the Creator. Corruption, this idea that, okay, I have a green shirt, but your shirt may be less green. Your shirt may be darker green, and you're seeing the different grades of color. And I mentioned a video on this before in the 5 senses. I may share that also in the description, but basically covering that again, just you see the different gradual colors, different senses of, okay, I could catch a football. Oh, you could catch a football better. Oh, you can see people with better skills than others. That's how you recognize that God has the skill that grants he grants to everyone of everything of a different level. He's the greatest catcher. He's the greatest runner. He has no limits. See, he's the one that could give the skill because he's the creator. The fourth way, the degrees of being. Now, I mixed that up. Okay, backtrack. Okay, everything I just shared with you, that was the fourth way. The third way, Aquinas was sharing the necessary cause. In other words, life and death. Basically, like if we're going to live and then we fall away and die, the idea here is you need a necessary being. So that was technically the third way, not the fourth way. So I mixed those two, the third and the fourth. But basically, third way, you need God to be the first. And the fourth way, you have the different grades, different skills that you see in life. Now the fifth way, my favorite one, is the order. The idea that, all right, if you're going to shoot the arrow, you need someone to kind of guide that arrow to hit the target. And that is the idea of God in the sense that he's guiding the arrow to its target. He's guiding you and I, guiding myself to make this video using everything I got here, my senses, my hearing, my visuals, my props, everything to make this video come to life. And that way it makes you kind of believe, hey, this guy can really talk. He can not just randomly say things randomly. He's using books and then his ideas, his experiences, everything to really make a good sound video, more than just a story, but a practical video that can help you in some way. So keep that in mind. Now, this last book I want to share with you, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. And basically, the big question he has here is, I alluded to earlier in this video, what is that goal we're attaining? How do you know you obtained self-esteem? Have you always had it? Are you just improving upon it? And he draws upon the 6 pillars as ways of practical living each day. And it's a book I still have to finish, but here are the 6 ways of practical living: of living consciously, self-acceptance, self-responsibility, self-assertiveness, living purposely, and personal integrity. And when you go through those practices of living, as I can already see here, I hope I could share more with you on these in the future, but I could just see right here, the conscious living, acceptance, responsibility, assertiveness, purposeful, and personal integrity. It's coming back to you and how you recognize life and living, really living a life that is full of purpose and meaning. You're giving yourself the opportunity to love yourself, to not judge yourself so harshly. In other words, stop putting the brakes on yourself. Stop putting yourself in the box, the cage. You got to open that door to allow yourself to be free. It's a scary thought to think, oh, man, I've made all these terrible actions in the past. How am I going to overcome my addictions to sex, drugs, pornography, all the bad habits that you can think of? How am I going to overcome these things? And the thing I can see already from the 6 pillars of esteem, allowing yourself out of that cage to make another chance of redemption. In other words, give yourself a second chance. And if you fall into a situation where you can see that the trap is about to be sprung, that's what he's trying to allude to. Can you get away from that trap? Can you learn from that mistake and say, oh, not today. I'm becoming aware of my mistakes, so that way I don't make the same mistake twice. Because as we know, doing the same thing over and over again is craziness. Now, persistence. You need that sometimes to be persistent, no matter what people are saying, in order to succeed. But if you can see a better way, a better opportunity beyond the persistence that, hey, I could get there right now. I see the opportunity. Go for it, right? It's good to be persistent. Builds your character. But then once you see a different solution to the same solution, the same solution to the same answer that you're trying to solve the problem to, go for it. That way it saves you some time and effort and resources to get to where you got to go. And so for me, example, to make these videos so great as best as I can, right, I'm always looking at ways that other YouTubers make their videos. How to use 2 different cameras, how to use books, ideas and props, ideas of connecting everything together, linking the dots. And you can see that, is this all improvised? Mostly, yeah. I'm just speaking on the spot right here as I go. But the thing is, when I can connect ideas, moving forward, using a pause even, break in the silence. You see? Knowing how to use a silence break to really bring connecting points together. In other words, you don't have to rush. You can allow the peace of a quietness to come into the video, and it sounds natural, right? So give that a shot when you're speaking in the front of others. That's a good self-care tip. But basically, what I'm drawing out with all these books, building the senses of Scripture, knowing God, your self-esteem, it's you. You're developing. I want you to self-actualize. This idea from philosophy that, okay, you have the potential. Now actualize that potential to be great. You're at level 1. How are you going to get to 100? Got to get to level 2, to 10, to 50, 100. And keep growing. keep growing and don't stop. And when you run into negative, toxic people, you're going to run into bigger bosses along the way. And that is the idea from the idea of games, right? You run into bigger bosses because you're getting stronger. And that's life. Toxic people, toxic bosses, toxic coworkers, toxic rivals in business. See, the bosses will get bigger, but that means you're getting stronger. You're getting bigger. You're diving into bigger territory because you yourself are growing. And you should not be afraid to challenge the next boss on the next level, so that way you improve and actualize to become a better person, as I know you can be. And so those are my thoughts today from Mike MC with Catechism CC number 115. I hope this video finds you well. Don't stop on your journey to growth. I know you got this. Don't be afraid of the bigger bosses. And when you have even the smaller ones trying to tease you and say, hey, you can't do this anymore, and you can't do this, remember, they're the small boss. You can walk past them and be like, oh, whatever, I can just walk past you, get a new job, or I can do this other thing, whatever. You mean nothing to me. I'm no longer afraid of you. Deflect the negative little bosses along the way, because if there's too many of them, it can be overwhelming. But if you learn to just let all that negative noise get past you, you're moving forward, and that is the goal. You can move past the boss and succeed, and you will do this. So that's for me from Mike the MC. I hope this video finds you well. You got this. Take care. Have a good one.